Hi, welcome to the Future Worlds podcast. Future Worlds is the on-campus startup accelerator at the University of Southampton. And I have the privilege of working with phenomenally talented scientists and engineers launching startups that can change the world every single day. And today, it's great to have Dan Stewart, co-founder of ViridiCO2, one of such startups, and an incredible scientist who has turned your science into an incredible startup. And of course, friends who come back to Southampton regularly confronted with seeing a 30-foot photo of Dan Stewart, CEO and co-founder of ViridiCO2. First, maybe Dan, just tell us, what is ViridiCO2?
Yeah. ViridiCO2 is a spin-out from the University of Southampton, stemmed from my PhD studies. And at its core, ViridiCO2 has a technology which enables chemical manufacturers and other high CO2 emitting industries to utilize their waste CO2 as a feedstock in chemical synthesis in order to produce high value chemical products that can be sold for profit for the chemical manufacturers, but actually find use in everything around us, from our clothes to our shoes, car seats, even the shampoos that we have in our bathrooms. And we are exploiting that technology to bring about not only more sustainable chemical manufacture, but to really transform how chemicals are made these days to make sure we have a successful future, really, and a more sustainable future.
Fantastic. So you're not only using waste CO2, but you're also using it to replace and make more sustainable the inherently dirty industry of chemical manufacturing that often has a really bad press.
Yeah, it does, which is really unfortunate because it has this sort of bad representation that the chemical industry is very dirty. And to an extent, we use very nasty chemicals, but everything around us has some form of chemicals in it. So it's inescapable, but the chemical industry is itself its own solution to those problems. And that is very much where we find ourselves. That's where ViridiCO2 sits. It is providing solutions to that industry to make it less dirty, to use less petrochemicals, which are derived from fossil fuel. So we reduce our fossil fuel footprint. We provide a process that uses less energy, so we are more sustainable in that aspect as well. But ultimately, we're able to do this and be able to provide profit for the manufacturers. So it's not a technology that has a green premium. We're not forcing manufacturers to come up with solutions that don't have a financial benefit to them as well.
Wow. And so what kind of stage is Viridi at the moment? Like, where are you at now?
Yeah, so at the moment, ViridiCO2 has just hired its 15th person. We signed that contract before we were 2 years old, which I'm sort of personally quite proud of. Back in February, we raised £3 million with EQT Ventures. That was our seed round, and we did that at a pre-money valuation of 15 million. So that was at about 18 months old. And right now we're doing early stage proof of value trials with some of the biggest chemical manufacturers in the world and some of the biggest consumer product manufacturers in the world in order to really trial and get the validation we need before jumping up to the bigger pilot scales.
And so what does that next step look like? Like, what's the vision for where you're going to be going over the next year or two?
This is the bit where things get sort of really, really exciting because we're at the stage now where everything is moving from inside the lab, it's all very small scale, to really tangible quantities that you could potentially hold, but it's very quickly going to get towards those quantities that suddenly begin to challenge the mind on how big they are. So one of the markets we're impacting most immediately is the surfactants market, for example. Surfactants are in it all your sort of cleaning things. So shampoos, we're trying to make a CO2 shampoo. Like, how cool is that? But 17 million tons of surfactants are made every year. Now, 17 million tons is sort of an incomprehensible volume of material. We don't know what that looks like, and we're starting to accelerate our technology towards producing or enabling the chemical manufacturers to produce quantities like that. So it's really exciting because it all becomes really tangible at this point. It's not a pipe dream anymore. We've been talking about delivering this, and this next stage is going to be sort of proof of the pudding, and that is exceptionally exciting.
And I see what you've done using shampoo as the example product. Obviously, I don't have much need for shampoo these days. I think my experiences on startup have caused me to lose my hair and all the stress of the roller coaster. But what are some of the other products that then surfactants can be used to produce?
So surfactants find use in an awful lot of applications that you would never expect to. The idea that a surfactant enables the mixtures of oils and waters that typically wouldn't mix together very well. So shampoos is a very good example, but dish soap, detergents in your washing powder to clean your clothes. So obviously that's water trying to get out all the oily stains. But you also find them in things like paints that you wouldn't expect to find things like that in. So they're really broad ranging, and we can impact a number of different markets through producing these sort of CO2 based versions of surfactants.
And so it sounds like you're on this really exciting journey. You've raised, like you say, £3 million. You've recruited now 15 people. The team's starting to grow. Was this a journey that you always wanted to go on? Had you always wanted to be a startup founder?
No, I didn't even think it was a possibility, to be honest with you. So I did my undergraduate degree in chemistry. I was pretty certain that chemistry is where I wanted to be. I've graduated in 2015 and didn't apply to any jobs. And so I found myself working in recruitment. And I think it's safe to say that myself and recruitment didn't get along as the roaring career that maybe I was looking for. But it did teach me a lot of things that at the time I didn't realize would come in handy in my future. And then I came back to the University of Southampton to do my PhD, where again, focusing on chemistry, but this time doing a project which focuses on the use of CO2. And really, I wanted to do that project because I wanted to do some science that would have hopefully a tangible effect on improving the chemical industry. CO2, huge topic. I want to do science which is worthwhile. And unfortunately, there's a lot of science which seems to be done just for the sake of science. But I wanted to do something for 4 years that would be hopefully beneficial to the world. And even a year and a half in, once we discovered this technology and it was working in the labs, I still didn't even think we'd be trying to produce a startup. It's only when we started to look into the commercial prospects and really why no one else in the world was able to do this. And then it sort of takes you down a journey of, well, if other people can't do it, then why shouldn't we do it? And you've got to sort of take the reins at that point and say, well, if no one else is doing it, we have a responsibility, especially of the potential impact that we could have on the quantities of CO2 that can be saved with our technology.
And when you think back to that time in the lab, it was you and your supervisor, Robert. What was your kind of thought process like at that point when you're thinking about what you could do with this, where you could go with it?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is that you're going to get a really cool paper, right? I still got the draft of that research paper ready to go to Nature. And I think every academic is in that position. You've just discovered possibly the best thing since sliced bread in chemistry sort of thing. So we've got this amazing catalyst. It's able to transform carbon dioxide under the lowest temperatures and pressures in any publication we've ever seen. And so you're sort of rubbing your hands together thinking, oh, I'm going to get the best journal article. This is career-setting stuff. And we took a moment of pause to kind of think, what are the potential other options we have? So if this is as commercially viable as it could well be, a paper is the last thing we need to do. We don't want to tell the world how to do it. We need to protect it and protect the commercial opportunity. So we actually chose to do a patent filing instead. And in doing that, we protected our IP, Robert and I. And that was supported through the University of Southampton. And from there, that's when the business idea sort of came out. Well, if we've made the effort of patenting this for commercial opportunity, then how do we exploit the patent to make a commercial opportunity realistic? And that's where we then went down the road of a startup.
And so at that point, did you know what that journey was going to look like? Did you know how you were going to take it from the lab to market? Did you know how you were going to build the startup?
No, not at all. And I was thinking about this actually before the podcast. I've been listening to a lot of other podcasts around high growth businesses and things like that, and largely with the opportunity to sort of make myself better as the CEO. But I was trying to think about what I was thinking at the time. And when you get told about a startup, you immediately think, if I become a successful startup, I'm going to build a business like SpaceX or Twitter. I don't mean to reel off all of Elon Musk's. Amazon, Spotify, the really big businesses that are part of everybody's lives. And you think, I'm going to be a millionaire, maybe a billionaire, and I'm going to deliver the technology that saves the planet. What you don't realize is the steps to do that. And I think even to this day, having raised like seed investment from a venture capitalist fund, I still don't quite know what those steps are. But at the time, all I could think of is that it was exciting. It was really cool. No one else in my friendship group has this opportunity, so I'm going to grab it with both hands. But there's still the nerves around, I'm giving up academia here to go do a business activity that I'm not trained in. I've just spent 8 years of my life grafting away in a lab, and I'm not going to be in the lab anymore. I'm going to be going and presenting to investors, and I don't know how to present to investors. I've got to run a business. I don't know how to set up a business. How do I file a VAT return? So just all of these things, and it's scary. And the biggest step was in that journey was quitting my job as a researcher to be the CEO of a company that didn't have any money, and we hadn't opened a bank account, and we were going to go for it.
And so how did you make that decision, like, at a personal level?
A lot of sleepless nights. I have always had the opinion that you should give everything a go. That's why I ended up in recruitment. When it was a job that was presented to me by a friend of mine, and at first I laughed in his face, and he said, come give it a go. And I was like, oh, damn it, I always say give everything a go. And when you're presented with an opportunity like that how old was I? 27 years old. I haven't really got a lot of dependencies in my life at that point. I'm renting. I don't have kids. I'm not married. If there was ever a time to have a go, now's the time. I don't think there was ever going to be a better opportunity. So it was a case of jumping in and persuading myself that things are gonna be okay, because you just don't have the certainty. We could have flopped in the first 6 months. We might not have secured that big Innovate UK grant, which span us out officially, and you just got to go for it. They say the hardest thing is starting, but also what they don't say is one of the hardest things is like quitting the previous thing. And I had a research fellowship in enterprise and research, and that was a pretty big deal for someone who's just walked out of their PhD. It was reasonable money, and you've got to kind of give that up on a limb, and hope that you're going to deliver ultimately and be able to pay your rent.
So what's one of the things you miss most of having left academia then to do Viridi?
There aren't many things, to be honest with you, that I miss about academia. I think the pace is different, and there is a lot of security, I think, in especially sort of the postdoctoral positions. You know you're on a fixed term contract, and you do a load of research. You're with the aim of trying to do some cool stuff and publish some papers, and then you can move on to the next position. And that can really like sort of take you anywhere in the world. And I guess I miss that to a degree. And also there seems to be, at least I perceived it to be, potentially less pressure, which I think is unfair. But compared to the business pressure that I feel under and the responsibility I have, I didn't have that as a postdoc. I'm responsible for my 15 employees. I'm responsible ultimately for all of the business actions of ViridiCO2. And if I get that wrong, there could be some very significant consequences. If we get the health and safety wrong, someone could die. And at the end of the day, that's on me. And there are some positions in academia that carries that, but not to the degree that I had responsibility for. It could be different for higher positions, obviously. But aside from that, I don't miss it.
Mm-hmm. And then maybe the other way, what's you allude to the pressure, the challenges that you're now carrying. What are some of the things that you find most difficult about the journey that you're on and launching ViridiCO2?
It's all the unknowns. So as a scientist, I was one of very few people who are doing research into this very specific area of science, and I was pretty good at it. I wasn't amazing. I wouldn't ever call myself an amazing scientist. But I was in an area that was very comfortable. I know my science around our technology inside and out, and I know how to improve it. When you step into the role of startup founder, if you are not the chief technology officer or the chief scientific officer, which I am not, you park the technology. You give it to your team and you let them run rampant with it. So it's very hard to do that sometimes. But it means that everything else that your job includes is everything you've not done before. So you don't know how to do things. And sort of alluded to it earlier about don't know how to start up a company. Got to go find out how to do that. And you build a team around you, board members or advisors who can help you with that. But it doesn't necessarily help you sleep at night because you've got to go deliver that really big pitch, or you need to go and get £3 million worth of funding to secure the next 2 years of work. And you've taken no training on how to do that.
You talk quite a lot about how you're basically stepping into the unknown and you're doing all of this stuff that you've not done before, you've not been trained in officially. And I guess part of the challenge is you've got the combination of the pressure, the responsibility, and you're a novice. So it's not only that you're a novice and you're learning, but you're learning and you need to win. You need it to succeed. How do you process some of that pressure?
Yeah, I mean, something that I have become better at is trying to just check myself. So being a startup founder is inherently very lonely, and trying to make sure you have your ability to escape to wherever it is. For me, it's sport. It's always been sport. Running around like a headless chicken on a sports field just, for me, releases a lot of the pressure, just helps you forget about it. For whatever period of time. Also helps tire out, so generally sleeping becomes a bit easier in the evenings. And making sure you've got a network around you that do understand, and that is different from a network of friends. So I'm fortunate, I've got some great friends in my life. I've got a very supportive family, but no one has done the journey that I'm doing. And that's where the loneliness comes in. And you can't escape it. Like, people say switch off, and it's like, wow, I'm about to run out of money in X number of months, and if I don't get more money, 15 people are going to lose their jobs. I'm the only person in the company that thinks about that constantly. Or we've got a big technical deadline. If we hit it, we're in the money. This big manufacturer is going to buy X number of kilos of our technology at X hundreds of thousands of pounds. If we don't hit it, then we're in trouble. And those kind of decisions don't ever leave you. So trying to find a way of escaping it, even momentarily, or being able to talk about it with people who understand. So that's what my board is for, being able to share the payload of that pressure and rely on their expertise and how they've done certain things in the past, which can make those processes quicker or more efficient, or bring contacts to the table that can assist us. That's how I found the best way to sort of release that pressure, because otherwise it will consume you. And it comes in waves as well. So things can be going really, really well, and suddenly you feel like, oh, this is easy. Well, we're gonna make it big, and then an email will just land and it changes the entire narrative, and suddenly you've got to be concerned about the rising cost of energy is going to impact a process which you were supposed to be saving all the energy for, and it makes it no longer value for money for things like that, that you just don't expect. So very much network, contacts, a close-knit sort of safety net in your boards and in your advisors, and being able to run around and just forget about things. And sport's always done that for me. Not just in a startup environment, when exams, when I was younger, everything like that. High pressure situations, go hit a hockey ball around.
And you talk about the pressure, but also the excitement. And for me, that's where the adrenaline is as well, isn't it? That you've got this. If we hit this, then this is what could happen. Like, this is how we could achieve this milestone. We can have this breakthrough, and that's part of the excitement, isn't it?
Oh, very much so.
It's just so incredible when you are on that journey. What have been some of the things that have surprised you along the way?
The thing that surprises me most is people, and how. For good reasons and for bad reasons, I have the most incredible team. And if Viridi ended tomorrow, the thing that I think I would be most proud of is the team that we've built. Because we've hired a group of people from all over the world with different backgrounds who have this shared passion for sustainability. And they surprise me on the daily with just how really, it's corny, but sort of how awesome they are, like how much they care about what we're doing and what we've built so far and how we are going to grow and expand and really try and bring a paradigm shift in the way the chemical industry operates. And these are guys who are fresh out of uni, like fresh-faced. They're so keen, and I love it, and I love the passion. So that's one of the best sort of surprising things. The more frustrating, surprising things are when people don't see the value in sustainable technology. And so watching a panorama series last night about why are we still digging for fossil fuels, because that immediately impacts our industry. And the question is, why are we still doing this? Now, thankfully, most of the big chemical companies that we work with, they've got such a big sustainability agenda. So we fit very nicely in with them and their goals. But there are still the ones that surprise me where they've told me what they're trying to achieve. I've told them how to achieve it. And then you see them drilling in the North Sea, which is just really frustrating. So I'd say people is the main thing that surprises me for good and bad reasons.
And you talk about that, you did a chemistry degree, you did a chemistry PhD, you did some time in recruitment, but none of that really prepared you for launching a startup, didn't train you on that. How did you navigate from the lab? What steps did you take that then took you from there to then now the position you're in?
I think it's really important to obviously do your research as best you can. And as a scientist, that should be fairly straightforward, right? But I very much view the role of a startup founder is not being someone who's really good at talking about their technology, but someone who is really good at listening to all the sage pieces of advices everyone gives. Listen to the people, listen to the industry, listen to the market, and process. You are a sponge. And you have to take everything in and you have to evaluate it. So coming from a scientific background, that helps you out. But you're not there to tell people about your technology. If your technology is good as you think it is, and you have the data to back it up, you don't need to be doing the talking, you need to be doing the listening. So listen to the types of business models that have previously shown to deliver this kind of technology. Listen to the advice around hiring. Listen to the people who tell you you're not good enough and where you're failing, because then you go hire people who are really good at those bits to complement you. Why does someone not want your technology? What are the barriers? How do I remove the barriers then? So I think that's the most important bit. You have to create a commercial proposition, and a lot of that is listening to the needs of the market or your customers, and you have to be prepared to sit, listen, and potentially hear some pretty critical things about either yourself or the technology, but you have to go do the research, have that understood, and then work your way through it. And if you can do those things, then you're going to be in a very strong position to commercialize and bring your technology, your science, whatever, to a successful point of commercialization or whatever the ambition is.
So Dan, you talked about, you had this great paper that could have been a Nature article, but you decided to go a different route. What did the steps look like? Because you knew how to submit an article for a journal paper. You didn't know what it looks like down the other route. So what did you do at that point?
Yeah, so once I had sort of researched around other people who were potentially doing the same kind of chemistry and realizing that there was an opportunity here because there was no technology capable of doing what we could do. And that was both in the scientific literature, anything I could find online, but also in the sort of patent literature that you're able to go through. Robert, my PhD supervisor and now co-founder, we reached out to the Tech Transfer Office to discuss what our options were around protecting it. And that sort of rolled the conversation into going down the patenting route and getting introduced to a patent attorney. But once we sort of started that process, the questions come up of how do we go and sort of commercialize that patent? And very honestly, I had no idea how to do that. But we were directed to Future Worlds. We'd met on the sort of the patenting side of things. We picked up, and I came and met the team here. And that was really the beginning of trying to formalize what a startup could look like, sort of really trying to explore the real basics that I guess you never think about as a scientist, ultimately revolving around how does this make money, and what do we need to do to make it make money. So Future Worlds put me in contact with my first sort of mentor, Chris Spackman, who sat on my board for a period of time. Chris guided myself and Robert through the early stages of really trying to flesh out what a company looks like, and how does a business operate. Future Worlds then built us up a network of people that we could call upon. You start researching around the kind of ways we could get some money to really support a commercial outfit, or really kind of get you going as a startup. And we went down the Innovate UK route with iCure funding. And what was so critical for us ultimately was how you guys at Future Worlds brought us our investor network. Demo day and the cohort that we sat on was really the... in my mind, it was a rigorous sort of training. Felt like a bit of like an assault course, because we're working towards a big demo day, a big presentation. Really our first massive pitch of why we're here, why we're changing the world, and why your network, the Future Worlds network, should give us some money and get in the car, come on the journey. We're going to do some really cool things together. But it all started with coming and having a conversation. Because at that point you could have turned around and said we were pants. So there was no point in putting any time into us. And that has to be, we joke about that, but you have to also realize that not all ideas are good ideas. I've certainly done some silly things over my time. But you can't have the conversation, understand the opportunity, and then from there, how are we going to get from an idea to a business that is started up, is going, and is trying to become one of the biggest companies in the world.
So you'd never pitched to investors before, you never had conversations with investors about your startup before. What were those first conversations like?
Well, I think it's safe to say they were probably quite naive. Spent a lot of time talking about the technology, and because that's the stuff that at the time, and to a degree I still love, but you talk a lot about the science, but really what we were trying to do with the early investors was get them on board. So talking about obviously how cool the technology is, but what problem it's trying to solve, and give as much information on why that is a problem worth solving, really, and how we were going to get there. And really in the early days, it's who have you got with you to give this a go. So it was Robert, myself, two guys who came in at day one as well, Josh and Panache, who are still with me, and just trying to, in a way, sell them the dream. Angels invest typically quite closely to their own interests and what they want to see improved in the world, and you want to bring them on that journey with you. You want to connect with them, and so that's what a lot of the pitches, which are probably really bad pitches now, really focused on.
And isn't that, I mean, that's part of the story, isn't it? Is that you don't have to be perfect. And I think that's one of the things that holds people, perhaps particularly academics, back, is this fear of maybe looking stupid or getting it wrong or not doing it well enough. And so then you hold yourself back too much and you don't do anything. And the reality is you maybe look back and say, oh, that was a really naive pitch, but it was a good enough pitch. You got money, it got you started. So maybe you'd do it better now. But actually, it was good enough and better to have tried something and it not be perfect, but it got you further forward.
Yeah, and I think at that stage where it's just crystallizing that the investors know that. They can see through you. And it's actually in some scenarios okay to say, I don't know that right now, or I haven't got that person right now, but here's how I'm going to go find out. Here's how I'm going to go get them. And actually the action plan shows a lot about your own characteristics, and those are the characteristics that the investors are looking for. So your grit, your determination, but your ability to think on the spot, how you work through problems. You don't have all the answers. If everyone had all the answers, there would be no problems to solve. It's as simple as that. So you don't have all the answers, but you're working with the limited information that you have, and you're showing them how you're going to get the rest. And that's really key. It's being able to accept what you don't know, but have a plan to go get that information.
Yeah. And you talked about how some of the Future Worlds network came around you as investors. How have some of those individuals changed your mindset, changed your approach, perhaps led you down a route perhaps that you wouldn't have imagined possible before we started?
Yeah. So they've been really instrumental in really, I guess, shaping the kind of person that I am as the leader of the company, and really trying to focus my mindset, or even just transition my mindset from a scientist's way of thinking to a business person's way of thinking. One critical investor that's again been in since day one, Raymond Scott. He's been there, he's done it. He's enjoying the spoils of his businesses that he's successfully exited, and he has sort of guided me on how to go about either pitching or how I should be leading the company. And it's never dogmatic. This is the best thing about the people who you connect with, who you work well with. It's the same with our chairman, Will Barton. At no point have they ever told me what to do. It has been guiding me and trying to show me different opportunities that I've not considered, and then the benefits of those, and really trying to help flex my characteristics that work well, and maybe trying to sand off the ones that are maybe a bit more brazen and less attractive, let's say.
And you talk about Ray, of course, based in San Jose, in the heart of Silicon Valley. And I remember when he came out on the San Francisco trip with Future Worlds, seeing Ray sort of chaperone you around the valley and introducing you to this incredible network that he has across the Bay Area there. What difference did that make to the journey of ViridiCO2? And maybe, what did you gain from that experience?
Yeah, so that trip was quite eye-opening for a number of reasons. We went out there because I guess that's the pipe dream, right? Everyone goes to Silicon Valley to go pitch their big ideas. They're going to become multimillionaires in all the places, and the big companies that are today's biggest companies, billionaire companies. What we found is actually we don't need to be there. We didn't need to be based in Silicon Valley to be successful. But the other side of it is we got introduced to people that, as a scientist who was not very long out the lab, you kind of feel like you've got no business talking to. These are the sort of big shot investors who have invested in the most successful companies, and you're getting an audience with them. And you're taking advice from them on, they might not be the people to invest in your companies, but they're giving you little tidbits of info that are going to make you successful. And it's remarkable what you kind of take from that. As I said earlier, you've got to be a sponge. And if the most successful investors or the most successful business leaders in the world are willing to give you a couple of bits of info for free, then you take it and you run with it. And I guess just the ecosystem in that Ray gave me access to has really sort of helped drive certain areas of our business and opened up some doors that we didn't realize could be opened.
So what were some of the key insights that you took from that input?
I guess it's because we were still very early and we were pre our seed round, so we hadn't taken our money, our 3 million just yet. It's really about honing in on what those big investors need to see, the kind of traction you need to have, the way to present yourself, your business, your ambition in a way that makes it succinct, that makes it really appetizing to investors. And then the other side of it is how you then go and achieve it, and what you need to do either personally or as a team, as a company, in order to really see the big change that you started out this journey doing, really.
And so you've had this incredible story to date, but of course the story's unfinished. What does the next chapter hold for you?
I guess we are, as I mentioned, on this sort of pivotal time where we are going through these trials with the biggest names in chemical manufacturing. And if they are successful, which I'm certain they are going to be, we have to go through this sort of explosive scale up. So that's really the next phase. That's what our next round of investment will support. And that means taking a team of 15 up to a team of 60, 70, maybe 100, having people in different countries selling your technology. So that's the really big next exciting, terrifying phase that we're going through, because with excitement, when you're doing something you've not done before, it's also a little bit terrifying.
And it's a real challenge. And having been there, when you scale through that, I found to sort of 40 to 60 people, the nature of the company really changes. You go from this small family to then a big dispersed team. Not everyone knows each other. You're hiring so quickly that people aren't keeping up with the names of the new starters, and you've got different departments that maybe work really well together and some don't work so well together. And you have the finance and the legal team that are in battle with the sales team and the commercial team, and resolving all of those issues is a whole different challenge, but a really exciting one, because that's where the impact comes.
I guess that's one part that, in a way, I'm not looking forward to. We've got 15 people at the moment, and I see them every day. And I know all their names. I know their partners. I know their backgrounds, and I love that. And I really enjoy getting to know people. It makes me really nervous that when we start growing to that stage, I'm not going to have that kind of relationship with everyone in the company. But it's a part of it. It's part of growth, and ultimately, if we want to achieve what we want to achieve, we've got to go through that. And it's really just how you manage your teams to manage those people, and then how many opportunities you get to actually go and around the world and meet them and check in on them. So that one's a sort of a personal challenge that I'm maybe not looking so forward to, but it's a sign of good things, growing the team out. So
it's a good problem to have.
Good
Absolutely.
problem to have, yeah.
So looking back to when you're there in the lab with this discovery, what would you say to other people in that position that are thinking, what do I do? Do I publish? Do I patent? Do I pursue something that's unknown? Like, what advice would you give to other PhD students, early career researchers maybe?
Yeah, I think if you're in the position where you have what you believe to be a potentially world-changing technology, you have to go and investigate that. I hope that, like myself, people who are scientists want to see their work have an impact on the world, right? We are researching at the forefront for a reason, to find new technologies that can benefit people, the world, whatever. And if you stumble upon that, you have to be willing to go investigate how big it could go, right? And that's what we did. We looked into what the potential impact was, and part of you thinks, oh my gosh, this is going to like blow off the handle. It's going to be huge. And then there's also the part of you going, oh my gosh, it's not going to work. The imposter syndrome a little bit.
And you say imposter syndrome. It's like there's you, little Dan in his lab, and presumably there's this kind of juxtaposition between I have no idea where I'd start with this, and this could be huge. This could change the world. Like, did you really believe that could be as massive as maybe it can be?
I guess I always thought we had awesome science. Like the data was unbelievable. The things that we were able to do with our technology for the chemical industry was just so impactful, and you can get behind that. But in terms of how big we thought it could go, that has kind of evolved over time. When I said it sort of earlier that when you suddenly think about a startup, you think about founding the biggest company in the world, but what you don't think about is the little steps. And actually, you've got the big company in mind, but you don't know how to get there. And actually, with every little step you take, it suddenly becomes a little bit more real, and the opportunity and the potential grows. So I think, in a way, always kind of knew we had a real opportunity, but wasn't just quite sure how to deliver it. And that's when Future Worlds has a really big impact on the bigger picture thinking. But the network as well. So Ray taking me out to Silicon Valley and really sort of him saying to me, you've got to think about the biggest impact we could have. And so your mind starts worrying about, well, actually, we don't just have to do surfactants. We can do materials that go into cars. We can do new clothing materials. We can come up with novel materials that haven't even been discovered yet, and find a way of making those from CO2. And then you get thrown questions by investors like, what happens if we run out of CO2? And it's like, wow, do you know what? Mars. Musk wants to take us to Mars. The majority of the Martian atmosphere is CO2, and we can't fly all of our soap up there, so we're going to have to make it on Mars. We'll use Martian CO2. And the possibilities suddenly become like unimaginable, how big you can go. And the board is responsible for trying to maybe maintain, maybe not Mars, but the biggest markets. But people coming into from your network and the people around you make you really think about the pure scale and then what that means. So we know that if we hit a certain number of markets with our technology, we could have such a huge contribution to reducing the CO2 footprint of the entire planet, like multiple digit percentages, which is astronomical quantities of CO2. And then obviously the financial upside of that is we're a billion-dollar company, like multi-billion-dollar company in our own right if we can deliver that. So no, I never thought that at the beginning. But every day that we see a success in the lab or steps towards our big first commercial agreement, the opportunity gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I guess that's what you draw energy from that. And the investors who back you draw energy in that. We've got investors who've gone and done their own huge companies. We've got angel investors who built the sort of biggest hedge fund in the world. I have our VC, EQT Ventures, Ali Mitchell. He's gone and done it. They're building one of the world's sort of best early stage venture capitalist firms with multiple funds, financing across every number of small companies up to billion-dollar companies, and they're backing you. And every time you have that backing, you know it's going to happen. You back the technology. The people aren't lying to you. They wouldn't give you money if they thought you were rubbish at the end of the day. So yeah, didn't think it at the beginning. I very much think it now. And every day we do something cool, it just becomes more and more real.
You've launched ViridiCO2 alongside a co-founder, Professor Robert Raja. He's gone from being your PhD supervisor to now co-founder in ViridiCO2, this incredible startup. What does this journey look like from his perspective? Like, kind of, what are the outcomes that the university, the research group, School of Chemistry get from this?
Yeah. I guess to dive into detail on that, you have to get him on the podcast, right? But funnily enough, it's a bit weird when we started, right? So he was my boss during my PhD, and I guess now technically I'm his boss, which is kind of funny. But I mean, he is a co-founder of a technology which potentially changes the world and the way we make chemicals. And he is, in his own right, a global expert in heterogeneous catalysis, and has technologies in other chemical processes. So this journey sort of, I guess, gives even greater credibility to his research and his impact at the university. The spin-out coming out of Southampton University helps with the REF statement, which obviously assists with gaining more finances to do more research ultimately, so we can do even sort of more research in this area, start to build new technology, spin out new technology, so the opportunity for impact increases. And I really love being a part of that as well, and I'm certain Robert does also.
You know, when your old friends come back to Southampton, they see a massive, great 30-foot picture of you on a big building in the centre of Southampton, this big, glamorous, chief exec of ViridiCO2. And do people have misconceptions of what it's like for you as, CEO of Viridi?
Yeah, I guess it's funny in a way, right? I always say, especially the early stages of the business, right? You can write whatever you want on your business cards. Right, you can pay £12 on Companies House, form a company, and write that you are the CEO. But you certainly don't feel like a CEO eating cheese on toast and instant noodles. And I think that's a really big difference. So, I mean, the guys who come down and wind me up constantly about my big old face on the side of a building, and believe me, I get a message every month with, who's this idiot? But I guess there is a disconnect there, that actually you're a startup founder, you're pouring every hour into your company, and yeah, you're not really living the CEO lifestyle. But we'll get there one day, and that's where you begin to enjoy the spoils of hard work and the sacrifices you've given earlier. But I really, really wish that there wasn't a massive picture of my face on the side of a building. That would certainly
we love the picture, Dan.
change those misconceptions a bit, I guess.
And I guess that is the reality, isn't it? Yeah, you're the CEO of nothing at the beginning, and you've got no money in the bank account, certainly the company bank account, maybe none in your own bank account as well. And it is that you're starting from zero, you're starting from nothing, a wing and a prayer, an idea, a hope, a dream. But it's the start of a journey that may lead to something that's incredible. It may not. Like it's that risk that you embrace.
Yeah, and actually the most important thing is that you believe in it. If anything carries you, it's your energy and your enthusiasm for whatever it is you're going for. So do I know fundamentally 100% we are going to change the chemical industry? The scientist in me says no, because there's no certainty in anything. However, I'm going to give absolutely everything, and I tell you that we are going to change the chemical industry in some way. The degree, how big that's going to be, well, we'll wait and see. But I have absolutely no doubt that we're going to have a huge impact.
And I think that's certainly what I see, looking back from my own experience, the many founders that we've supported along the way, that a key trait has to be that optimism that, okay, the stats say most startups fail,
exactly,
but I believe we can succeed. I believe we can buck the trend. We can buck the stats because this thing is so special that this is what it can do and this is how big it can be. And that hope, that belief, that optimism has to power the steps that you follow.
Yeah.
Dan, thank you so much for coming and sharing your journey with us. It's been great just to spend some time reflecting on the journey that it's, from my side, been a privilege to walk alongside you in that and see how you've progressed and each step that you're taking, and cannot wait to see where it goes and quite what an impact you have. Thank all of you for being part of this podcast episode. Don't forget to leave comments, follow us, subscribe, see the next podcast that's going to be coming through. And if you've got any questions or comments that you want to share, then do get in touch and we can address them in the next one.